Why are municipalities failing to pay Eskom? Well, maybe because we have a flawed electricity sales model. Give me a few minutes of your time so I can explain this one. Many people overlook or fail to grasp a key flaw in South Africa's current electricity sales model, and until it is resolved, they will continue to misplace blame for much of the underlying crime. While fraud and corruption within municipalities contribute significantly to the debt, they do not account for the largest portion owed to Eskom. Regrettably, the biggest share arises from criminal behavior among some consumers, the electricity users themselves, and it is not primarily from those who skip payments or pay late or fall into arrears, but from outright theft through bypassing meters or illegal connections. These losses are typically labeled non-technical losses, yet this vague term obscures the true issue. The core problem lies with individuals, the users, engaging in such acts as turning on lights or appliances without paying. And recognizing this may bolster support for urging Eskom to assume responsibility and rectify the defects in this electricity distribution system, which inherently generates municipal debt. In South Africa's electricity sector, the persistent failure of municipalities to pay Eskom stems from a complex web of financial, operational, and structural challenges, with electricity theft and inadequate infrastructure monitoring emerging as central culprits that exacerbate revenue losses and perpetuate a vicious debt cycle. Municipalities responsible for distributing electricity to end users after purchasing it in bulk from Eskom often find themselves unable to collect payments from consumers due to widespread non-payment and illegal activities such as bypassing of meters and illegal connections, leading to arrears that have surged to around 95 billion as of the end of Eskom's 2025 financial year, marking a 27% increase from the previous period. This debt not only threatens Eskom's financial viability, but also highlights how the delegation of last mile distribution to local governments has shifted the burden of securing a highly vulnerable product, electricity, which is prone to theft through illegal connections, meter tampering, and illicit token generation, away from the national utility and onto entities ill-equipped to handle it effectively. A key factor in this failure is the lack of direct, robust monitoring of infrastructure, a responsibility that ideally falls under Eskom's purview as the primary generator and transmitter of power, but has been effectively devolved to municipalities as the vendors in the supply chain. Now, without centralized oversight, municipalities struggle to safeguard the grid against theft, which has resulted in almost 15 terawatt hours of lost electricity in 2025 alone, translating to billions in unrecovered revenue. These losses, often categorized as non-technical, arise from outdated metering systems, poor billing accuracy, and insufficient security measures, allowing consumers to bypass payments while still accessing power. Eskom's own efforts to combat this, such as addressing breaches in its online vending system that enabled free electricity distribution, have contained some issues, but the decentralized model means municipalities bear the frontline costs of detection and prevention, which they frequently cannot afford amid their own fiscal distress. Consumers, in turn, owe municipalities over 400 billion rand for services, driven by economic pressures like unemployment and rising tariffs, further straining local governments that rely on these collections to settle upstream debts to Eskom. The question of who should foot the bill for direct monitoring, the inspection and security underscores a fundamental misalignment in the current system. Traditionally, municipalities fund these activities through their distribution revenues, including tariffs set by NERSA, but their inability to do so effectively has led to overloaded networks, frequent outages, and escalating theft. Eskom, as the bulk supplier, invests in transmission level security and has allocated significant portions of its 320 billion rand 5-year capital expenditure plan, which is roughly 64% of distribution spending, to accelerating smart meter rollouts, which enhance real-time monitoring and reduce tampering risks, with about 800,000 smart meters installed in 2025 alone. However, for last mile infrastructure, the costs fall on municipalities, creating that gap where neither party fully assumes accountability, and national government interventions like the Treasury's debt relief program have failed to enforce compliance or fund necessary upgrades. Ultimately, the shared funding model involves government subsidies, Eskom's resources, and restructured tariffs could bridge this. But without reform, the burden disproportionately harms Eskom's sustainability, as evidenced by projections of municipal debt reaching 300 billion rand by 2030 if unaddressed. Shifting the sale and distribution of electricity entirely from municipalities to Eskom could indeed offer a more effective solution by centralizing control and forcing the utility to prioritize end-to-end grid security, from generation to consumer delivery. Proposals like Eskom's distribution agency agreements aim to achieve this for indebted municipalities, allowing Eskom to take over operations in exchange for managing collections and infrastructure. With 2 such agreements already implemented via court orders in Umfuleni and Maluti Apofong, I think it is, where collection rates have improved modestly from 25% to around 55 to 65% in the latter case. This approach would compel Eskom to invest directly in monitoring tools like advanced analytics, AI-driven fraud detection, and secure prepaid systems, which it has already begun piloting to curb theft and enhance oversight. However, opposition from SALGA warns that such moves risk undermining municipal autonomy under the Constitution, potentially bypassing community consultations and integrated development planning, and could be seen as a backdoor takeover without addressing root causes like consumer debt to local government, which they say totals 460 billion rand. Proponents argue it would streamline accountability, reduce costs, and stabilize the grid. But implementation requires careful navigation of legal mandates and intergovernmental cooperation to avoid further economic disruption in vulnerable areas, so they say. While not a panacea, centralization under Eskom could break this debt spiral by aligning incentives for the robust security and monitoring, which ensures a more reliable energy future for South Africa. But here is another thought. Call it my conspiracy theory. Another perspective worth considering is the notion that recent tariff hikes may indirectly cover portions of the mounting debt. effectively requiring paying customers to subsidize losses from theft and non-payment. In essence, this theory posits that consumers might be charged rates equivalent to purchasing more electricity than they actually use, as Eskom and regulators account for unrecovered revenue in their pricing models to maintain financial stability, though this is not an explicit policy, but a potential outcome of how costs are calculated. Examining the structure of tariffs approved by the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, reveals that non-technical losses, including theft, are indeed factored into revenue requirements, with such losses capped at levels like 15% in some determinations, so they say, meaning higher prices for compliant users to offset the shortfall. Listen carefully. You are paying for those customers who are stealing electricity. This all aligns with the observed 12.74% increase for the direct customers in 2025, driven by broader financial pressures, including municipal arrears and operational inefficiencies, making the idea plausible rather than mere conjecture. If you like paying for the electricity other people are stealing, this current model is for you. But if you don't like paying for other people's electricity, listen up. If you agree with the idea I've proposed in this video, then there is an urgency for action, such as contacting your ward councillor to advocate for transferring electricity sales from municipal control to Eskom. We also need to encourage political parties to press the government and NERSA and Eskom to oversee the full supply chain. Opposing arguments lose weight in light of the overwhelming debt burdening municipalities under the existing framework, rendering persistence with the status quo illogical. We cannot continue like this. So if you agree, please spread the concept widely. The idea is to elevate it to governmental discussions. So I need you to share this article, share this video with your ward councillors, members of parliament, or influential figures capable of driving change in this flawed system. I would love to hear your ideas on how we can push this idea and whether you agree with me that the current system is where this flaw really gets generated, where this debt for municipalities gets generated. So let me hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this content, please do like, share, and subscribe. And I will catch you in a next video.